Hello, welcome to Skye's 5 Tech Tips for Edutaining Classes with Engaging PowerPoints. I am a professor of French at SUNY the College of Brockport, which is an excellent, small, public liberal arts college in Western New York. Now, what I want to be presenting to you is based on my experience from teaching there. That's based on my experience on using PowerPoints to create classes that students really enjoy. Now, I initially made it for a conference that I gave, for a paper that I gave at a conference entitled How to Edutain the 17th Century. So I prepared this initially for the 2016 meeting of the North American Society for 17th Century French Literature. Phew, that's a tough acronym. And what I really tried to emphasize was the need to educate and entertain at the same time. Part of this was based on the demographic of students that we're dealing with, the millennials or the digital natives or whatever it is, the net generation, all these crazy terms that people come up with, in which they emphasize in all of these books that our learners are the most visual of all learners and that we should either use technology well or not at all. So, that's what I'm here to show you. I'm here to talk to you about ways of using technology that are in fact entertaining and educational. Because if you use PowerPoint correctly, you can inject humor, you can create a sort of rhythm, and most importantly, eventually you can more or less get rid of all lecture notes. I don't use lecture notes anymore, I used to, but when you have slides and they're well made, and again, never read from a slide, that's one thing. If you have a slide and it's well made, you can use that to help determine the rhythm and help remind you of what it is that you're talking about. Now, it may be a little bit jarring for you to see that I'm going pretty consistently from being up here in my little video here where I'm talking, and then the slides down there. Sometimes I'll be full screen, sometimes the slides will be full screen. This is sort of another interesting point. If you're ever making a video for students, they really prefer it, and it really works a lot better if you are included in the video yourself. I didn't want to be filmed. You might not want to be filmed. You know, let's take, for example, maybe you have some weird scar in the very middle of your forehead that you don't want immortalized in video. Well, it's actually worth it because you're much more connected. Because if we take as a counter example, if I'm just discussing that very visual learners and you should use technology, not at all, you don't really have a way of connecting to me. Whereas if you see me and I'm moving around and I'm talking and I'm showing myself, it works a little bit better. So let's get to Skye's 5 tech tips for engaging PowerPoints. The first 2 I'm going to show together. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. 1, animate every slide, or nearly every slide. But you should constantly be thinking about a slide as not a static thing, but as a moving thing. And use more pics and less words. And in particular, I really want you to think about how to use Google Images. Because I think when technology came out, the internet came out, everyone was really afraid of copyright and having to put photo credits on every single thing you do. Unless you plan on publishing what you're doing or unless you plan on putting it on the web, there's no real danger in just using images as you wish. So I'm going to show you ways to do that, to create interesting slides. And I'm going to sort of I'm going to show you a slide that I think is an example of a successful one. And I'm going to show you how I made that slide. The sort of overarching rule of this whole thing, let's get me on there. The overarching rule that I would say to everybody is that I believe it is a college professor's duty to actually use and play with all technology you're going to use. So if you have PowerPoint, don't just learn the minimum you can do and then just keep going. Spend some time. Look at all those weird words that are up on the very top of that bar there. Go into each of them, see what they are. I'm not even saying go into any kind of manual. I don't think that's necessary. I really think what's necessary is playing with it, not being afraid of it. I often think about when I used to play with computers, or I used to work on computers, I always felt like they might blow up if I touched them wrong. They're really not like that. Especially nowadays, they're really designed for maximum intuitive Yeah, maximum intuitive interface. So they want you to succeed. They've worked with people like you who are trying to make slides, and they've made it as easy as possible for you to succeed. But in my experience, I've seen that a lot of professors don't take advantage of that. So that's really what I'm trying to do. So let's get back to animating every slide. Let's take as an example this slide that I made, and I showed this in my talk. Okay, so I'm trying to illustrate a concept of Henry Bergson, who was a 20th century, well, late 19th, early 20th century philosopher who wrote about the nature of laughter. And he talked about what it is that makes something funny. And he was making this argument that laughter is fundamentally human. And you can't laugh at something that's not human. And he takes the example of a hat. Okay, so here's a hat. It's a very trendy hat. It's what people wear. In particular, it's sort of associated with hip-hop and maybe sports stars, sort of an oversized hat. So here's an example of how a slide might work and how I'd create it. And I'll translate this into English just because I want this to go to the largest possible audience. We laugh at a hat, but what we're giggling at is not the little bit of felt or of straw. It is the form that humans have given it. Boom! Justin Bieber. Okay? Trust me, the students find this hilarious. Okay? Because they see this and they know this is a guy who's not supposed to wear a hat like this, that he's sort of in the middle of this weird kind of crisis of identity and he's trying to find out who he is, and it's only the fact that he is wearing the hat that it's funny. I also take it a little bit further, and I wear the hat myself sometimes, but that's maybe going too far. So I just want to show the different techniques and tips that you can do in order to make a slide like this. Okay, so first of all, there's a few things you should get used to. Now, you can go up here into the file and go, every time you're going to do a new slide, you can go to a new slide. See, I do this. Yes, so you can go to Insert, New Slide if you wish. I really actually suggest that you start to use these keys. The more you try to, initially when you use the quick keys, it'll take a long time to get used to them. But much like you're probably now used to, if you're a French professor, for example, typing quickly accent aigu or a circonflexe, you should get used to these. So you can go to a new slide like that, or you can just do what I do, which is Shift, Command, N, and then that creates the new slide, which goes much quicker. First thing I do is I get rid of all templates, okay? There's a lot of templates built into PowerPoint, and I think this is one of the dangers of PowerPoint, is they offer a lot of images, like stock images. They offer a lot of sort of templates, but students see this and they get wary of it. It's kind of like stock photography or stock imagery. They get so used to seeing it, they kind of tune out. They sort of associate that with their home sphere. So what I do is I just click, and you'll see me click here. I click on it, and then I delete it with the delete key. I click on this, and I delete the key. Okay? So if you know what the idea is, and I knew the idea was to show Justin Bieber with a stupid hat, but you can have just about any idea. Okay, this is where you have to start using Google Image. So I'm going to draw up the beautiful website, Google. First, we're going to go by College of Brockport. So we're going to go to Google Images. Okay, and you don't even have to go to Google Images initially. You can just type into any search bar, Justin Bieber stupid hat. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm trying to think, how did I create this slide? I'm sure I just hit that. See, I misspelled it, but it's still showing the results. And look at that. Right down here is the image that I would ultimately use. Okay, so you can click on Images for Justin Bieber Stupid Hat. And then you can go through here and you can choose between all of these beautiful stupid hats that you're going to use to illustrate Bergson's point. Boy, he's got a lot of stupid hats. I think some of these weren't here when I made the slide because I would have gone with this crazy spiky one. But let's go back to where I am here. So You can click here, and one of the most important things about choosing slides that you're going to use is to look at the sizes over here. So in general, you're going to want to use around 500, at least 500 is sort of a small number because that'll be larger. The smaller the image, if you have to enlarge it, then you're going to be kind of stuck with a pixelated image. So this is a really nice, so you see this one's much smaller. So even though you may like that image more, if you were to actually take it out, it wouldn't look as crisp and as high definition. And I don't know how smart your classrooms are. Most of the TVs that I use to display these things on are all high definition, so it actually does matter. Now what's amazing here is how easy they've made it. Okay, so if you have your slide over here and you have your image over here, you click on the image, you drag it, and then you let go. And there it is. There's the image. Now, if it's too small, if you want another image, one thing that in general I like to do is, if you're looking at images under stupid hats, if you're really looking for a larger image, you can look by size. So this goes by any size, but we probably want at least medium. That's your best kind of bet. So that takes out the smaller images that you could possibly use. So there we are. We have this hat, and that's what I would end up using, right? Now we look at the finished slide, and we see that's there. Erase that one there. And we see this here. So if my point is we're making fun of the person, not the hat, we also have to have an image of a hat. So again, you just have to look. I'm just going to look up, looks like the name of the brand there is Mitchell and Ness. Mitchell and Ness. Looks like it's a Toronto Raptors hat. Raptors hat. There we go. So we have this image here. Now this isn't the exact same one that I used before, but it doesn't really matter. We'll make up a new slide based on this. And again, we just take it and we drag it in. Nothing too complicated there. Okay? So now we have these two images that we're going to use as the basis of our slide. Again, it's using Google Images, it's using slides, it's sort of mixing all these things together to create something interesting. So let's have this here. Another interesting thing that I've learned in playing around is cropping images. So if you double click on any image, okay, if you double click on any image in PowerPoint, you're going to end up with this whole formatting bar here. This is very useful, as you'll see. Anything you double click on, you'll get the formatting bar. So double click, and then I'll crop, and I'll just take this down here so that it's more about the image and less about the over there. And then I'll take this in here. So now we have an image that's a lot smaller, and we can take it out that way. So what you can do now is you have your image, and then you have your image of Justin Bieber. But what I tried to do, if you remember, is I tried to create sort of a narrative within this slide. So you have the image and you say, is it funny? And they don't laugh. And then I give the text, and then I move it over, and then I show Justin Bieber. So the key to this is you have your original text, you have your original image here, and then you have your Justin Bieber image. I'm actually going to change the size of this so that it matches a little bit better. The way you change size is you just grab the corner of any image and you bring it in. And it's going to maintain basically the same, as long as you grab by a corner, it's going to maintain the same basic image. If you start grabbing it by the sides, that's what will get stretched out and weird. And as always, the biggest key, the most important thing to remember to do is Command Z. That undoes anything you do. So if you do anything really stupid, you can always just do Command Z, and that will undo it. If you really want, you can go up to Edit, Undo, but really you should be used to Command Z just like you are with Command X, Command C, and Command V. So let's put that there, and let's put this here. Now I get a little bit anal about these things. I like there to be a matched size, so I'm actually going to enlarge this hat, provided that it's working out here. I'm going to move it over to the side, and so now they're actually at the same basic size. So they're at the same. The top and the bottom are the same in both. So I know that I want this to be a secret. Justin Bieber is going to be my little surprise. So I'm not going to erase him. I'm not going to create another slide. I'm just going to animate him in. And the way you do that is you click on him, and then you go up here to this bar where it says Animations. And you click Entrance Effects. I just do appear. Don't goof around with these other things. Students don't like it. And it just looks cheesy after a while. Just do appear and disappear anytime you're going to animate a slide. Simple as possible. You don't do the whole zooming woo thing. So you animate that slide. So then what do we have here? We have, boom. So there's the hat and then the Justin Bieber hat. But if you remember, I actually had the text come in first. So how are we going to do that? Well, first of all, we have to take the text as it exists, and move it in. So there are ways of doing that. If you have the text in a Word document, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to copy it from here. And you take your text from a Word document or from the web or from wherever, and you just go to the slide and you just paste it in. Okay? Now the text is here, you can figure out how to deal with it. So because I know I'm going to want this text to fit over Justin Bieber's face, I'm going to set that up now. Even though ultimately it's going to take a while for me to get there, I know that I'm going to put that over his face. So I put that there. And I think that's going to look quite nice there. But as you can see, there's a little bit of confusion between the text and the image. This is where, again, this is all things you can figure out just by goofing around or by listening to me. So much like you can double click on an image and that'll allow you to crop things, you can double click on a little bit of sip of coffee here. You can double click on an actual text box, and that'll give you a whole nother set of properties. So you look up here, okay? So you have fill and line. So that means that refers to around the text. So what is going to fill behind the text? So there's all these different possible colors, okay? So if you hit orange, I don't really like that. Gray, I don't really like that either. Do you know what would actually be more interesting and more fun? What if we actually started color matching this slide? And this is what creates really nice looking slides, is that you can create them so they're aesthetically pleasing. So how do you do that? You just click on more colors. Okay, always click on more colors. Never go with theme or standard colors. And that's going to give you a color wheel. So what's cool is once you click on this little loop, this magnifying glass, you can go anywhere on the screen. Okay, so imagine you want the color to be my tongue. Okay, that's apparently the color of my tongue, or the color of that weird thing on my forehead. It doesn't look that bad. Or what's best is to find, much like an artist would do, find the dominant color of your images, which is the beautiful purple of this hat. So you click on the purple of that hat and you hit OK. Aha, now there's some kind of visual symmetry behind it. No, not symmetry, okay. Harmony, not symmetry. There's some visual harmony to it. So I'm trying to do this whole video in one take. It's a lot of pressure. So what I would do here, the problem is that you now have all of this set up, right? So it's covering up Justin Bieber's face entirely, which takes away a little bit of the joke. Again, double click. And this is where you should start playing with transparency. Transparency is another tool to play with while you're making PowerPoints. So you see, you can make it barely transparent, but it still gives the idea of what's behind it. You can make it almost entirely transparent, but then it's still hard to read the text. I like to usually go somewhere in the middle so that we see it as being there, and then you can still see what's behind it. And again, what we want to do is make it so that it animates. So again, we go to Animations, and we go to Appear. But I want you to notice something here, okay? Doing it this way you'll see it looks like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't actually what I wanted to do. This isn't the order that I wanted to have it go. There's a crucial step in animating, and that is going up to tools. No, I'm sorry. In PowerPoint, going up into format. No, wait, what am I going up to? Ah, yes, going up to view. Sorry. You know, you goof around with these things so much, you don't always think about where they are. You go into view, and you click on custom animation. And this is, hey, this is an essential box, because this is the properties of animation that are going to happen on the slide. So, if we take as an example this slide here. So if we decide that we actually want Justin Bieber to come next, so you see that's picture 3 up here, you move it down in the animation order. So now, how do we have it? Ta-da! Okay. So that goes that way. But what if we want it to actually be even more dynamic than that? Because part of animating slides is actually going in and going line by line. And this is something that I think people often lose sight of when they're creating slides, is this little trick right here. So you go on to the rectangle, which has all the text, and then you see animate text all at once. Okay, you can leave that, but it's better to actually go group text. First level. I don't know why it says first level or what that means, but what that does is that every time that there's a return hit in the quote, in the text, every time at some point someone said return, hit return on the keyboard, it makes it so that there's a break in between. So look at how this animates. It's quite nice. You see? So that way, when you're reading in class, you can say it and allow them to fill in and allow them to keep up. Again, this stops it from being like just reading a huge bunch of text, and instead it makes it almost like subtitles or something that they're following along. Now, if you remember in the original slide, I actually had this text move over a little bit because I thought it was more fun to have it next to Justin Bieber. So that's where there are a couple other tricks you can do, such as motion, which is up here. And again, don't get too crazy. The simpler you get, the better it is. So I would just do a draw line. Okay, so you go to paths, you go down, and just do draw line. And you just pick anywhere in the middle of the text and have it move over. And then you can watch it there. And it moves over there so that you have it and it looks quite nice. So what's our problem though? We're still on this slide and it's still not in the right order. So you take your movement, which is right there, you can tell it looks different than the entrance, and you move it up. So now let's see the order that we have. Ta-da! What's up, Beebs? So there you have it. I would do one more thing. White backgrounds are pretty unnecessary. So what I really like is having, again, the primary color that dominates the slide be the thing that dominates the background as well. So you go to Format and Slide Background. Again, color. You could do cancel. Wait. Color. More colors. Let's go snag that hat one more time. Okay. Apply. And you can apply it to all or just apply it to the one. And then you have your finalized slide. So where you could just have them reading in the book and have them read about how a hat isn't it, and you try to explain how a top hat isn't funny or how a flat-brimmed Toronto Raptors hat isn't funny. By showing all of the stages, you show the hat itself, you have them explain that what's not funny is the felt. You then move it over and allow them the moment of humor to realize, haha, Justin Bieber is a white Canadian who is very wealthy, and he is wearing a hat that is associated primarily with African Americans from the United States, and there's this whole sort of back and forth sociological exclusionary laughter that's built on them laughing at this image, and that's what they find out from Bergson, and that's what you're helping them to see in a sort of entertaining and educational way. So I do that constantly with my slides. Here's another example from my talk. So I was going to be talking about, I used a couple quotes from these excellent books. And what I did was I created little text boxes that covered over each side of the book. And I took one sentence from each that was essential. So I took the curriculum must meet our students where they are, not where they hope they might be. And then teachers should interact with students to help them discover for themselves. Again, just taking this as an example of how to create an engaging slide. So I took this and I filled it. Oops. So I took this text box and I filled it with the orange color that's behind it. I then went in and I wanted to emphasize certain things. And this is where you can play with text as well. So I wanted this sentence to really be highlighted. So I went here and I went to text styles, not textiles, but text styles. And you can go with whoops, no, not that, sorry. So you can go with text styles, and then you can go with the color of the line and make that a different color, or you can make it blue if you prefer it to be blue, or you can go in and make it something really weird like bright yellow. But you can go in and do different kinds of text and just play with this. Certain ones that they have, these quick styles, are very useful. They're not too difficult. They have kind of shadows and they're interesting. And again, the idea is to sort of create a kind of back and forth, a kind of dynamism, which I did the same thing here, where I actually wanted it to have a visual harmony with the original cover of the book. So you'll see that this green is the same as that green. And these are all just things, again, I don't know how necessary. I don't know. I honestly don't know how necessary it is to have such pretty looking slides. I can tell you that it does create a certain sense of pride when you're doing it, because you look at it and you kind of go, hey, that's a good looking slide. And I believe, and my evaluations have indicated this is probably true, the students do respond to it when they know that you've put so much work into it. So that's an example of how to animate and how to use slides. And again, I really think the best thing is just to goof around with it until you get it, until it becomes second nature, like how to create new slides. Just like at one point you didn't know how to cut and paste. At one point you didn't know how to animate every single one of your slides. But now you know to go to animations, to add appear, and of course you can make something appear or disappear or move. You should be animating every slide and just using Google Images just totally freely, I also wanted to say another important thing to use is a presentation remote. So that looks like one of these guys here. And there's all different kinds. They are all pretty much the same. They usually cost about $20. Let's get rid of that so you can see my cool John Oliver style shirt here. So what this does is it really frees you to move around. It frees you to be more of a performer. Even if you don't end up jumping around and going all Robin Williams on the desk and everything, you can still, it creates a kind of wireless freedom. So you're not constantly going over and hitting the button to advance the slides. And in particular, this allows it so that when you have these animated slides, you can be on the other side of the room and you're clicking the button and they're looking at you and they're looking at the screen and they're looking down. There's kind of this sort of whole dynamism and movement that's in there. You can also use it, I think, I teach Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme. That's one of my favorite books. And for plays, as an example, of course, we've all taught where the students are looking at the book and then they go back and forth and they take different roles. But if you just take this simple image from Google Images, you see it's not a super high quality image, but it doesn't really matter. I don't know where this image comes from, and I don't even care. I just found it, and I put it up there. And I'm trying to explain the relationship between these two people. And there's an amazing scene. So what I do is I take a slide, and I just again as an example. So I took this, I just went in. So if you want to create this, so I'm trying to say he's a monomaniac. So what you can just do is you just type anywhere, and you just type in monoman. Just put that in there, and then you can make the text bigger. There's a couple different ways of making text bigger. The way I do it, let's see, tools, format. So you can go into font and wait for it to open. It's going to go blip, 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 blip. Well, it's taking a long time. It doesn't usually take that long time. And you can go font size, and you can go whatever, 50, and you can make the color yellow if you want. Okay, I prefer a different way, so I'm going to undo that. What I prefer to do is Shift, Command, and the greater than symbol, which is the same as the punctuation for period. So that will make it, you can make it larger and larger, or smaller and smaller. Again, that's Shift, Command, and either greater than symbol or less than symbol. So this is just a thing to play around with it to get it to be bigger, and then you can't read it. So as always, double click on the thing you want to change. You double click on that, and you can fill it. Let's fill it with yellow, and let's put that over there. And let's make it a little bit transparent. Let's get rid of this other one. You also need to learn how to click on the thing you want to erase. So click on that, hit delete, move down the monoman. There. So getting back to the animating the slides. So I'm trying to show how she's the reasonable one and he's the crazy one. So we've already been talking about the raisonneur, who's the man who's reasonable, and in this case it's actually a woman who's reasonable. So it's Act 3, Scene 12, and I'm completely hands-free here. I've got the clicker in my hand, and I have the students read. So I say, "You're Monsieur Jourdain," and the student will read it. "Si votre père a été marchand, tant pis pour lui." Okay, that's the worst possible accent. My students have much better accents than that. And then I pass on to Madame Jourdain, and I kind of go back and forth. And as you see, it makes it so that the students are not just reading, but they're actually performing to go back and forth. So this is, I think, a pretty nice example of the importance of this little tiny piece of technology will get you a long way. In a similar way, I think it's crucial that we animate, not animate our slides, I'm repeating myself, it's crucial that we download all videos. So this is something that's been driving me crazy, which is, it used to be, there's all these great videos on YouTube. I mean, as an example, Bourgeois Gentilhomme by Molière, the entire play is 3 or 4 different versions are available on the internet if you want to look for them on YouTube. But Wi-Fi can be touchy in a building, okay? So you're waiting for a long time for it to load. And that's dead time in class. I mean, where I teach, I have 50 minutes to teach a class. If I spend even 30 seconds waiting for something to download, that's 30 seconds where they could have heard most of that dialogue I just showed you. Or what's even worse is you'll have advertisements that jump in. So then you'll be trying to teach a class and they have to sit there during a Geico commercial. Or actually during this class on comedy I taught, they had a whole thing about like anti-diarrhea drugs, which actually was pretty nice because I was able to teach about the mechanical nature of laughter. Anyway, that's fine. But in order to avoid that, I really suggest you download all videos. And I'm not saying to use one or the other. I use one that's called Movie Sherlock. You see that down there. I find it to work out well. Because the thing is that YouTube is designed not to be able to download videos. But there's many other third-party companies that allow you to do it. And this indicates another issue, which is, well, where are you downloading it? I would suggest, if possible, to have your own laptop. And if you have your own laptop, you have your college pay for it, bring in the adapters that are necessary. Now, if you have a really new system, no adapters are needed because it'll plug directly into the HDMI port. Or maybe you'll need something kind of like this, which I use for my Mac, which on some of the older projection systems, this is required to plug in. You can just go to the IT people at your college and they'll tell you exactly what you need to do. As much as possible, have everything on your computer. And then eventually you start to have your computer, it's almost like a doctor's bag, like you're always ready. You've downloaded all the videos, you have all the PowerPoints exactly the way they are. There's no formatting questions of where it is. There's no rushing to class before time to download everything to get it going. As much as you can, have it be in your doctor bag. I don't know if that's a good metaphor. I just came up with it right now. Doesn't matter. So when you download the videos, it's really much easier because you always have them absolutely ready. Now, if you can't bring in your own computer, you can just bring in a USB key and plug that in, and you can download your PowerPoint and you can drag the video that you've used and put that onto the computer temporarily. Again, this is really necessary. You can even, and I don't always do this, but you can even simply drag and drop a video into a slide. So let me show you how you do that. Once again, how do you do a new slide? Shift Command N to create a new slide. I go in and I erase these. You can erase multiple things by holding on to Shift. So that'll allow you to click different things. And then let's go to my edutainment folder. Let's see, Trump Edutain. This is one I talked about in my speech. So you just drag it in, and there it is. And now it's actually in your PowerPoint. But you can only do this once you've fully downloaded it. Now I'm going to play with it. I'm going to make it as large as possible. It's in sort of a widescreen format, so I'm going to put it in the center, and then I'll make the slide background black. So now it looks kind of like a movie. And then here it is. So you don't have to wait for it to load. You don't have to wait for anything. No Geico commercials.
So they went on about the peso. On Sunday, when most of that interview aired on Meet Haynes to Donald Trump,
you don't have to wait for it to load. You can just quickly go forward
a sense of
in time.
There's
because
a smallness
it's entirely
to
downloaded to where you are. So you're never going to have to wait for it to load.
World being
and again, students find this. Oops.
Someone who can't.
Students find this a lot nicer because they know how to do all these things, and it's sort of like if you're watching improvisational comedy, right? And they're doing it live, and someone breaks character, and everyone kind of laughs like, oh, it's funny. But then you watch it a second time, and it's not funny anymore. That's sort of what it is when technology doesn't work in the classroom. They sort of like, haha, that's really funny. But really what you're doing is you're giving up your authority. You're giving up your authority in the classroom because you're saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And they can laugh at that, but that really undermines what you're trying to do. So that's why I think it's really essential to bring in the videos. And finally, grading notebooks. This is something I've just started to do recently, and I think it's absolutely essential because if you succeed in making very entertaining and educational slides, the temptation on the student's part is to be very passive because it looks kind of like TV. That's kind of the goal. We're sort of trying to make it like TV or like a movie. Except the problem is, if they can't recall the meaning of Monsieur Jourdain saying, oui, marquise, right? If you can't indicate the importance of Bergson, if they don't take notes the entire time they're watching you perform or they're watching you teach, then they're not going to be able to retain anything. So there's a couple of things I do. One, I never tell them if I'm going to upload the slides or not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. if students know that you are going to upload the slides, they instantly back off. Like, it doesn't really matter because I can just go back and click on it again. You need to make sure that they really know that you are essential for their learning. That's another reason that you should do way more pictures than you do text, because you shouldn't be putting up everything that they need to write down. You should tell them right up front, you are going to need to write down what I am saying. But these images that you're putting behind you are just as a way to engage them. And sometimes, you'll put the most important thing and make sure they write it down. So make sure that they know that they need to write down what you're saying. And part of the way to do that is to grade the notebooks. I do that during midterms and finals. I just collect all their notebooks and I go through them and I tell them, I am looking to make sure that you are really writing down everything that you need to write down. And that creates a sense of accountability. And sometimes I'll post the PowerPoints online, sometimes I won't, because I want them to know that being in class is essential, and that it's completely necessary for learning. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. You can email me, spaine@brockport.edu. Actually, let's just put that right here. Spaine@brockport.edu. If there's anything about this video that interests you or that you want to know more about, I really truly believe that this technology provides a great opportunity to entertain and educate our students. But I think it needs to be used properly, and the main way to do it is to learn the way I did, which is just goof around, or I guess you can watch this video and then email me and ask me questions. I hope it's useful. I hope everyone has good classes, and let's go Golden Eagles. That's the name of the team for SUNY, the College of Brockport. Okay. All right. Bye. Oops. See there, I hit the wrong button. Oh boy.